When you're about to perform a cleanup on some data, one of the first things you must do is create a copy of that data. There are many ways you can do this. So for example, when we get information from clients, we create a folder where we put the original data and we actually save into it exactly what was given to us, either as an Excel file or if we got it as text, we actually save it as the original text format. If you find this tedious, then what you can do is when you receive data, so for example here's the data we received, you can see we've called it original data and you can see it in its messy format, and then any work we do, we create a copy of it and you'll see here we've done all the work and made it neat and tidy. But we can always get back to the original data because you never know when from going from here to here you accidentally deleted something. In order to create a copy, it's very easy. What you can do is you get the data, you right click on the sheet and you'll see there's something called move or copy, and I can say create a copy, and then I can decide either to leave it in here or put it into a new workbook. But this way you'll always sure that you have the ability to go back and check whether all this work is correct. It is important when you're about to do a cleanup of a file, so for example here's a messy file and we need to work on it so that we can get it to look something like that, nice and clean, in columns, no blank rows, etc., that you look for some sort of a control total. So for example in this file, if I go right to the bottom, I'll see that I've got a number here that's coming to 18122, 892. Once I'm finished working with this, unless I'm planning to get rid of some of the real data, when I've cleaned it up, I should be able to go here, sum it, and get back to exactly the same number. This way I know that all the work I've done to make it neat hasn't actually compromised any of the data. Another important thing to remember when you're having to clean up data and then report on it is you should rather report by exclusion and not by inclusion. So to explain that, here we've got a very small database and we just want to know the results for AAA. If I report by inclusion, I only include what I'm looking for. So for example here I'm just going to use a SUMIF. And all I'm going to say is I just want to add up. So I'm going to say please look here, look for whatever's there and sum that. When I say okay, I get 2 and I move on. The risk you have here is how do you know that you've correctly allocated this AAA? Over here I've reported by exclusion. What that means is I report for each unique item. I then create a total, and then I can compare what I expect to see with what I am seeing. And as you can see, there's an error here, and the reason is that this first AAA has got a space at the end, and so Excel did not count it here. So only when we can use these control totals can we be sure that the information is correct, and then we can exclude these two and pull through the result. So I'd be able to say now that the results for AAA are exactly that. So as much as possible, you should try and clean up data and create a comprehensive report and then exclude what you don't want. When you have received data, perhaps something like that, and you need to clean it up, perhaps to report on it, it is important you spend a bit of time understanding what you've been given and also what you want to end up with, both from a process. So do you want to do it once off only this time, or are you going to have to do it monthly? And then also what reports are you going to have to end up with? So for example, if we look at this data, we can see that there's a name, then a gap, which presumably applies to that person, and then a total. So perhaps we need at some point to do a sort, and we need this person's name to appear for all the data that relates to them. So of course you can go like this and spend hours and hours doing it, but there are a number of ways to do it. So you need to note it down that you need to fill in some gaps. Perhaps if you look at this, all these totals are just going to get in the way, plus things like the page numbers. So you need to remove some of these rows or delete rows. So you know you need to do that. You need to then at that stage decide, do you want to delete it manually? So at worst, you go through it and manually delete them, or you use one of the clever tricks that we show you of how to delete them, or do you want to use a formula so you can create a template? If you have problems with the actual data, you also need to spend a bit of time looking at it and seeing what happens. So for example, if you find that you're doing some sort of a VLOOKUP and for some reason Sam isn't coming through, you must physically click on Sam. And one of the things we recommend is click in the cell, but not close to the end of this, what you think is the end of the cell. Click far away. You may discover that there's actually some spaces there that are causing your problem. If you've got problems with the numbers, physically click in them and see what's there. So when I click in this one, you'll see there's some sort of a warning. If I click here, it says it's been formatted as text. This one here also seems to say it's been formatted as text. It's worthwhile clicking in. So here we've got a bit of a strange number. I wonder how I can make it act like a number, and physically maybe go and delete some things and see when Excel actually responds positively to what you've done. Over here we've got a 0 in front of the number. How is that possible? Well, again, there's a bit of a warning here that it's been formatted in some way as text. If you see that you're having problems with some dates, physically click in them, see what's there. So these full stops might be causing a problem. Play with them, see what they do, see what happens when you either delete or add stuff to them. It is very important to understand that you can't just stare at the computer and hope to get the information right. You need to investigate, see what's actually happening in the cell and why it's not doing what you expect it to do, and then come up with ways to clean the data, to scrub it, hopefully in the quickest possible way, with the only really decider being whether you want to use some of the tools up here, which means that then every month when you get the data you'll have to repeat the process, or do you want to use some formula where you can set it up, copy and paste it into a template, and perhaps over here the data will automatically clean itself. If you need to quickly clean up a file and perhaps remove unnecessary rows, so in this example all these things here are unnecessary, we don't want them. All we are interested in are these bits of data. You could, I suppose, go and manually go through and delete and keep going, but a better way to do this is highlight the data. Now, quite important, don't let Excel guess. Go all the way to the bottom, highlight it all, go to data and switch the filter on. And what you can now do is work through the filter and decide what you don't want to see. So in this case, I know that I just want to see this, and I know the data quite well. So when I come here, I know that in this case, because I'm going to try to get rid of it, I want to see what I want to get rid of. So coming down here, I want to see all of that must go. If I remember right, this contains the data I want, so I'm going to deselect it. Okay, so it looks like I've highlighted everything I don't want. When I say OK, it's always a good idea just to scroll down and make sure none of the data that's left behind is a problem for you. You'll see there are some numbers here, but these are the subtotals which I can create on my own. The nice thing about the filter is that if I highlight the row and I go all the way to the bottom up to there, when I delete the row, so I right click over here and I say delete row, Excel is clever enough to realize that I don't want to delete the hidden rows. It's only the visible rows. So I'm going to right click, delete row, and when I clear my filter, you can see that almost immediately my data is quite clean. Now I can see that there's something here that I don't really want. These are maximums and minimums. So I can do another step. In this case, I'm going to say I only want to see the rows that have max and min in that column. Again, we see them all. I highlight the rows, I right click, I say delete row, and when I say clear, suddenly in 2 steps I've cleaned up quite a messy report. If we want, we can combine the data filter with a formula. So for example, here we've got some dirty data, we've set up the auto filter, but what we don't want to do is now have to work through all of this. So what we can do is in a separate column, if I look carefully, I'll notice that the lines I want always seem to contain a date in column B, and we know that a date is actually a number. So in Excel there's a formula called isNumber. I'm just going to say that cell must look at that cell there and tell me if it's a number or not. So that says false. I'm going to go and copy it all the way down to here. And you'll see I've got a combinations of true and false. But now what I can do is, as long as the filter's on that column, I can click here and I can either select the trues, in which case you see I've got some nice clean data, and perhaps now I can highlight it, copy it, and paste it nicely on a new sheet. Or alternatively, I can identify all the falses. So this now is the data that's not clean, it's the rows I don't want, and I could highlight them all, delete the row, and when I remove the filter, I've now got clean data. This formula is a very simple formula, but you may create other formula, a bit more complex, to tell Excel whether a line should or shouldn't stay. If you receive data like this regularly, you may want to set up a template that automatically extracts the information you want, in this case here, and leaves behind the unnecessary information. In another section we showed you how to do it using the tool, the auto filter. But now how can we achieve the same thing, effectively deleting or removing these rows using formula? So as always, the first thing with cleaning up data is to somehow figure out what rule can we use that shows us the data we don't want and the data we do want. Now looking at this data, the one thing that seems to be the most consistent is that the data we want has dates in this column. Then you'll see there's some words, and then there goes dates again. So the first thing we're going to do is create a check to see are these dates or not. Now dates, you should be aware, are numbers, and in Excel there's a formula called isNumber. So we're going to go look for the function isNumber, and I'm going to tell Excel to please check whether whatever's in that cell is a number. We can copy it all the way down. And you'll see there's a variety of falses and trues. Now I'd prefer these to be zeros and ones. And the way to get Excel to do that is just in front of the isNumber, I'm going to put 2 negative signs. Just Control Enter. So we've now got zeros, for items that we want to remove, and 1s for items we want to keep. Now that we've got this, I'm just going to create a formula here. I'm going to create a sum formula, and I'm going to tell it to sum from A1 to A1, so just sum that cell, but I'm going to put dollar signs on the first one, so that as we copy it down, you'll see it grows longer and longer. And what we've got is wherever there's something we want, you'll see it grows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It gets to 10, and then it stays on that number until we get to the next section we want. Over here, I've just set up a little space where we can capture this information. Normally, this would be on a separate sheet. What I'm going to use is a function called VLOOKUP. So the first thing I'm going to say, what is the lookup value? So I'm going to point over here. I'm going to say look up the ones. And I'm just going to put a dollar sign on the letter. Where must Excel look for the ones? It must go and must use column B and look in that entire area. I'm going to put my dollar signs on as well. The column index number, I'm going to say look up here. So I've just created it up here. Put the dollar signs on the 1, just so that when I copy it across, it looks at column 2, 3, 4, etc. And the range lookup, I'm going to say false. So I want it to find the exact match. I'm going to copy it, paste it. I'll just paste it as values for now. And what you'll notice is that it's pulled through only the relevant data. So how does it do it? Well, for the ones, it's easy. It goes here, finds the number 1, and then pulls through the relevant data. When it gets to 10, it comes here, finds the first one it sees, and pulls that information. Because of the way we've set it up with the false, find an exact match, once it's found the 10, when it looks for 11, it skips all of these, and then pulls through the 11. So as a result, you've now got a clean section of data, which you can then copy and paste as values or do what you need to do. You will notice there's a couple of things we did do though. So these helper cells we've built on the left, and that's just because of the constraint of VLOOKUP. If you use something like index and match, then you wouldn't need to do that. In order to clean this data, it looks like we need to clear all the blank lines. So the first thing we're going to do is put the auto filter on. So I'll highlight the area I want to put the filter onto. Go to data and filter. Now we've got this. Now it's important then to look at your data and just see how we can tell Excel which rows we want to keep. So it looks like that if there's a number in column N, it looks like it's the ones we want. All the subtotals seem to be in other columns. So what we want to do is get rid of the blanks. So we click on the filter and we tell it to show us the items we want to get rid of, so the blanks. So we get this. It's always useful just to scroll down and make sure that what you're seeing doesn't look like you need to keep it. If you're happy with it, now I'm not going to delete the top few because I got some headers there. I'm probably going to go from here, go all the way down to where the last blue number is, right click and say delete row, depending on the size. Seems to be done, and when I clear it, it looks much cleaner. That was the total we were looking for when we add this up. 186, 186. We want to clean this data, but this time we want to use a formula to tell us which rows we want to keep and not keep. Looking at the data, it looks like wherever there's a number in column N, that's the cell we want to keep. So over here in P17, or let's go to I have P14. I'm going to use a formula, and in Excel there's a formula called isNumber. I'm going to point it at that cell there. It's okay, and it gives me a false. I copy it, come all the way down to here. I paste it, and what you'll see, it says false and true depending on what it is. We can now put our data filter on, and now instead of working through these areas here, we can go to our formula. I'm going to say I want to see all the falses, because those are things we don't want. Again, always useful to look and check. If we're happy with that, I can highlight them all, right click, delete row, can clear, and you'll see the data is cleaned. To use formula to remove the unnecessary rows, there's a couple of things we need to do. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to insert 2 columns here. And in column A, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and work out which of these rows we want to keep. So as shown previously, there's a function in Excel called isNumber. So we're going to find it, and we're going to tell it to look over here and tell us if it's a number or not. So that says false. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it all the way down here. So now we've got false, true, etc. We do, however, need these to be converted into a number. You'll see why just now. So there's a couple of ways we can do it. We can either use an if function, or we could put 2 negatives in front of here. I'm going to use an if function. So I'm going to say if that equals false, then put a 0, otherwise put a 1. We'll paste it all the way down. So now what you've got is a whole bunch of 0s and 1s. Next door to it, we're going to just add that cell plus the previous cell and copy and paste it down. And as a result, what we get is a growing number. So you'll see there's 1, 1, then it goes to 2, then 3, etc. So wherever the number changes, it's where there's a row that we want to keep. What we're now going to do just here in row 9, I'm just going to put some numbers here. You'll see why just now. So all I want these numbers to do is just grow by 1. It's going to make our lives a lot easier just now. So now that we've got that set up, effectively every month you're going to go and you'll just copy and paste the information in here. But now normally this would be on a separate sheet, but now let's create a section which will now remove the unnecessary rows. So over here I'm going to put a 1 equals that plus 1. You'll see I'm just going to copy it down for quite a while. Okay, so we're going to that number. We'll check a little bit later if that's correct. And up here I'm going to put a couple of numbers, and again you'll see why just now. Okay, what we're now going to do is make use of a VLOOKUP function. So what we're going to tell Excel, the lookup values, it must look for the number 1. I'm just going to put the $ on the column. Where must it go look? Well, it needs to go look at this new column we've created, because we want to pull through that one. So I'm going to highlight this whole table all the way to column P, so that we can access any column. Just put the $ on. The column index number, I'm just going to tell it to look up here. So we wanted to pull through column 2 in this case, and the range lookup. we're going to say false. So when we say OK, it pulls that through. So what Excel has done is it's looking for one, comes down this list, finds the first one. Because we told it to find an exact match, it finds the first one, ignores the second one, always finds the first one, and it brings through column 2. So if I want, I can copy and paste that all the way down. You'll see that it works for most of them. Down here we've got NAs, and that's because we don't have that many unique items. I'm just going to delete it just to make it neater. Now we've got that, I'm just going to copy this column, paste it here, and then all we need to decide is which columns we want. So at the moment we said we wanted column 2. You'll see column 3 seems to contain a period, which is useful, and column 4. So I'm going to say 2, 3, 4, that's fine. You'll see here the dates, we're going to format them just now. And then we want the number, which seems to be column 15. So I'm going to put a 15 in there, and there's my numbers. And now it's just a case of formatting. So I'm going to format that into a date format that I like. And I'm going to format that into some numbers. And now what we've got is we've got calculations, which when you go and paste next month's data here, it will automatically do the calculations and automatically pull through the clean data. In this example, you'll notice that we need to clean the data because there's some subtotals within the data. So the first thing we'll do is we'll put a data filter on, and then we need to figure out how we're going to remove all these totals. You'll notice that there's nothing unique here that kind of repeats the same number, but one of the things we can do with the filter, so you'll see here's all the numbers and there's the words with the total, but we don't want to have to go and tick every one. So over here we can type total, and what it does is it automatically ticks for you anything that contains the word total. When I say OK, you'll see it brings this list up. It looks like it's bringing all the ones we want. I can highlight them all, right click, delete. When I clear, you'll see it's cleaned. If you've got gaps in your data, for example, here's a report, various cities, salespeople, etc. We know that all of these actually imply London. But the problem for Excel, if you're going to use anything like a pivot table or a sort, is we need to fill it with the word London. So the most common way I've seen people do it is they sit here and they copy, and they go here and they copy, and so on. This can be tedious work, and I can promise you lots of mistakes are made like this. Before I show you the main trick, I just want to show you a little shortcut called Control Enter. What this allows you to do is to enter the same formula in many non-adjacent cells. So for example here, I want the sales just to add up those two, same thing here, and in the cost of sales, same thing. So I could do it manually, equals that plus that, and then copy it in every place. Or else what I can do is I can highlight all the cells. You'll notice that those are all highlighted and there's one active cell. Without clicking it again, I'm going to say equals that plus that. So whatever we do is applicable to the active cell, the cell in white. If I pushed enter now, it would only enter the formula here. But if I hold my control key down and push enter, it enters that exact same formula in all the cells that were highlighted. So you can see it's correctly looking at the correct cells. And it is exactly as if we'd copied one and pasted it everywhere, except it happens in one go. Now let's see how we can use this to fill in these blanks very quickly. So because of the trick we now know, if we could just somehow highlight all the blanks, we would be able to then tell Excel, use that active cell, let's equals the one above, and when I click Control Enter, it will automatically fill it in. The thing is, it's very difficult to go and manually highlight these. So there's a great tool in Excel. What we can do is we highlight our data. Under the Home tab, find and select. There's an option here called Go to Special. And there's an option here called Blanks. And what this is going to do is tell Excel to highlight all the blank cells in our selection. So when I say OK, you'll see it's highlighted all of them. I can now look where the active cell is. Don't click. I can just type equals the one above. And I know that when I click Control Enter, it will fill in all these gaps. So this will look there and take Ben. This one will look one up, which will be Ben. These won't be overwritten. This one will look one up and take Susan. So let me push Control Enter. And you'll see immediately it's filled in. Just one thing you've got to be careful of. You've now got text and formulas. In order to make it safe as such, we suggest you highlight it, copy it, and paste it as values, so that these formulas don't get in the way if you start sorting and the like. The Go to Special function works very well, but occasionally there are just too many blanks for Excel to remember. So when you get to 100,000 rows, it starts to struggle. So another way to fill in these gaps is you highlight all the data, you put your filter on, and what you can now do is I can click on a filter and I can tell it I only want to see the blanks. When I say OK, you'll see it's hidden anything that had a text in it. Now I can create a formula, but there's nothing I can click on because A2 is hidden. But I know that's what I want to look at. So I'm going to say equals A2. That says London. But the filter is clever enough that when I copy it down, it doesn't overwrite the hidden rows. So you'll see row 8, which says New York, is used over here. I can clear that and you'll see that's done there. The one constraint or difference from the Go to Special tool is we need to do each column one at a time. So here we're going to go here, choose blanks, I'm going to say equals B2, copy it down, say clear, and we're in the same position. Don't forget, you've got formulas now in text. So my suggestion is you copy and you paste as values. We can also use formula to fill in gaps. In most cases this would be done on a separate sheet, but just to show you, we're going to put it on the same sheet. So here's my data with the gaps. We're just going to copy and paste the headings. And what we're going to use is a formula. We're going to use the if formula. And what the if formula is going to say is look at the corresponding cell. If there's something in there, use it. If there's not, look one above yourself. So I'm going to go find the if function. And I'm going to tell Excel, look at that cell there, no dollar signs. Is it equal to a blank? If it is a blank, look above yourself. If it's not a blank, look at that cell there. So when I say OK, you'll see it brings London through. When I copy it down, Notice it says London again. What it's doing is it's looking here, seeing it's a blank, and knowing that if it's a blank, it must look up. So we can now copy it all the way down. You'll see it does it that way. If I copy it across, you'll see it does the same thing. So by applying this formula, you can set up your spreadsheet so that, for example, every month you copy and paste the data here in the input area, and the formulas will automatically fill in the gaps for you. In this example, we've got a slightly different situation. So we still have these gaps here, which we clearly need to fill in, but now there's some useful information and it's no longer stored over here, but it seems to be in the same column over here. So we need to somehow get Excel to know that this London applies to all of those, New York applies to all of those, etc. So we can do that by making use of an if function. So how do we do this? The first thing is to see what can we tell Excel to look out for to know that this is the word we're looking for. If we tell it to look in this column and see if there's a word there, it'll get confused with all of these. So what we need to do is look and see is what is unique about this row that we can use. And you'll notice that London, New York, Paris and Johannesburg, all of them seem to have blanks over here. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to do a test and we're going to say, is it a blank over here? So over here I'm going to go and put my function is, and there's a function in Excel called isBlank. And all I'm going to tell Excel is go, look where the numbers are, and tell me if it's a blank. And you'll see it gives us a true or a false, and we could copy it down, and we get our various trues or falses. But now what we need to do is tell Excel that if it sees a blank there, it must look at that name. If there isn't a blank, so if we were down here somewhere, it can't look at this name, but what it can do is just look one above it, because it will probably be looking at London. So let's build it. So I'm going to put the if around it, and we're going to say if the blank equals true, then what must it do? It must look in that cell there. If it's not true, I'm going to tell it just to look one up. I'm going to close it and click enter. And what you'll see is when I copy it down, it is clever enough to know. So for example over here, it looks here, doesn't see a blank, looks one up. That one did the same thing, which therefore looks at this one, which is correct. When it gets to New York, there's a blank here, does the same thing. Once you've done this, however, you must be careful, because these are formulas. You don't want to now start manipulating and affecting the formulas. So generally speaking, what we do is we highlight this, we'd copy it, and we'd paste it as values. And once we've done that, we can then fill in these gaps using the tools we already know. So I'm going to go here. We'll use the go to special blanks. It's looking over here. I'm going to say equals the one above. So that looks fine. Remember, highlight it, paste as values. And then just to get rid of all the unnecessary information, I go to data, put my filter on, and I now know that there's certain items I'm going to remove. So what we need to do is now figure out which items we're going to remove here. So I know that I have no interest in seeing London, New York here because I have got it all on the side. So I would go here, switch on the towns, highlight them, delete the row, and when I clear it, I've now got the cities on the left hand side, and they're all correctly aligned to the data. In this example, we've got some data. We need to use it elsewhere, but we cannot have these gaps here. if you click here, you'll notice that there seems to be some merged cells. So before we can do anything, we need to get rid of the merged cells. So I'm just going to highlight these, go to my format cells, go to alignment, and switch off the merged cells so that we can actually access these cells. Second thing we're going to do is just highlight that area. Under the Home tab in Finance Select, there's Go to Special. I'm going to tell it to choose all the blanks. You'll notice it's only highlighted those. And then I'm going to say equals the one above. And now I don't push enter, I push Control Enter. And it automatically fills in the correct items. Very important to remember, when you've done that, you cannot leave it like that. You must copy it and paste it as values so that the formulas don't interfere with any other work you do, like sorting. In this example, we need to fill in these gaps with whatever's written up here. As you can see, these seem to be merged cells, so I'm just going to highlight them and get rid of the merge. In this case, we're going to use the data filter. So the way we do that is we highlight our data, switch the filter on. What I'm then going to do is come to this one. I'm going to say I want to see only the blanks. And when I see the blanks, I'm going to come here. Sometimes you won't see this one, but I know that this cell A5, must be equal to cell A4. So I'm going to type in equals A4. I'm going to copy it. And then when I come all the way down here and I paste it, when it's in filter, Excel is clever enough to realize not to overwrite the item over here. So let's just clear it. So you'll see that that private stays. No formula in it. Once you have done that, you must highlight that area, copy it, and paste it as values so that the formula goes away and it doesn't interfere in any further calculations. In this example, we want to fill in these gaps here, but we want to use a formula. So instead of using a tool, we want to create a formula so that, for example, next month we can just copy and paste the data in and the formula will work it out. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a formula. I'm going to use an if function. And what I'm going to tell Excel is please look at that cell over there, cell A4, and tell me, is it equal to, and I'm going to put two inverted commas next to each other, which means is it a blank? If it is a blank, then I know I want Excel to look above here. If it's not a blank, then I want it to take whatever's in here. Let's say OK. Yeah, and paste it. And what you'll see is what Excel is doing is in each line it's looking, seeing if there's a blank there. If there's a blank there, then it assumes you must use the one above. If it's not a blank, so in this example it looks here, it doesn't see a blank, therefore it uses what's ever there. We can then go and paste the various lines, and each line is doing exactly the same thing. If for whatever reason there were gaps here, it would do exactly the same thing. We can now just format these just to make them more presentable. And now next month when we get our data, we can just copy and paste it into the correct area and Excel would automatically fill in the gaps for us. In this example, we've got a database, but it seems that each line or each bit of information actually contains two rows of information. And ideally what we want is we're looking particularly for these two bits of information, but we do want it to pull through also this date and these items here. So what we can do is we highlight the entire database, go to Find and Select, go to Special, Blanks. I'm going to say equals the one above, Control Enter. Just to make it safe, I copy it and paste it as values. Now that we've got this, we can then put our filter on. And we now need to decide what we want to keep. So in this case, we want to get rid of anything that says Tim here. So we'll go here, we'll select all the Tim. We highlight the row. Go down here, right click and say delete row. When we clear it, you'll see the data is much cleaner and we've got the information we want on a single row. There are a couple of telltale signs that Excel is not recognizing a number as a proper number. We're just going to go through a number of these just to show you how you can recognize it. Generally speaking, numbers when they are entered are right aligned and text is left aligned. So this could be an indicator if something is not seen as a number. However, be aware that I can take a number and I can left align it manually, so that's not always a good predictor. You should be able to format numbers and change the look and feel of them. So for example, I've got a whole bunch of numbers here. You can see they are a bit of a mess. If I go like this and I try and format them, and let's say for this I'm just going to add 2 decimal places and use a 100 separator. When I say OK, anything that's not a number will not get these. So sometimes it's worthwhile just adding a crazy amount of decimals and you'll see where the numbers aren't. Excel has a useful tool down here where if I highlight a number of numbers, you'll notice that it sums them. If it is not a number, for example, if I highlight these 2, you'll notice that the sum is coming to 1886, which excludes this first one. So if you highlight a number of cells and you expect a much bigger number, have a look down here and see if it's actually adding them all up. A proper number in Excel should not have an apostrophe in front of it. So if you see an apostrophe in front of it, this is forcing Excel to see a number as text. So over here you'll see as well, there's an apostrophe in front of it. And this is sometimes used, particularly for example, when you're entering cell numbers. So over here, for example, you'll see to avoid the 0 disappearing, an apostrophe is put in. So an apostrophe in front of a number makes Excel ignore it as a number. If there's a 0 in front of a number without a decimal, this is not a number. If Excel puts a 0 in front, it is not seeing this as a number, it's seeing it as text. If it sees it as a number, as you capture it, the 0 will disappear. There are formulas that help you test if a number is actually a number as seen by Excel. So if we go here, you'll see there's a function in Excel called is number. And what we can do is we can point at the cell that we're worried about, and it will tell us either true or false whether Excel sees that cell as a number or not. Excel also tries to warn you when it sees a number or something that's possibly a number but it's not using it as a number. So for example here, can you see the little green mark here? When you click on it, if we hover over here, it warns us the number in this cell is formatted as text or preceded by an apostrophe. So without having to look in each cell, it will warn you about the apostrophes. Just be careful about this because you'll notice that there's no green marks on any of these. So these are numbers, but for whatever reason, they're numbers in a format that Excel has not seen as a number. FlashFill is a new tool available in Excel 2013 and up. So if your Excel doesn't look like this with a dull green over here, you may not be able to use it. But it is a great tool and it helps with converting all sorts of information, particularly numbers that Excel thinks is text, into numbers. So he has a whole selection of them. So for example, if we look at that one, you'll see there's an apostrophe in front of it. The way FlashFill works is I type what I want to see, I highlight it, under data, you'll see there's an item here called FlashFill, or you can use Control E. So let's use FlashFill, and notice all the numbers are converted. So previously didn't add them up, now it adds it up. Here's a whole bunch of dates. If I try and format them as a date, you can see it's not changing. So these are not actually recognized as dates. So let's type the date in. So we look at the first one and we say 23rd of Jan 2014. You'll see that's a proper date. I highlight it, I push Control E, and you'll see it converts it instantly for you. Here we have some times, and as shown elsewhere, these two are recognized, that one's not. So if I now type in the time the way it should be entered with 2 zeros, I highlight it, I push Control E, and you'll see it converts all of them. Here we have a whole bunch of numbers. You'll see it's not summing it. It's because of this comma. We go next door, we type what we want to see, we highlight it, push Control E, and it immediately converts it. In these cells, you'll see we've got a double spacing. So I go here, I type what I want to see. This time I'm going to highlight it, and we'll go back and click Data, FlashFill, and you'll see it converts it. This here is a stubborn space. It's a space, it's not a typical click the spacebar space, which is explained elsewhere. But with FlashFill, you just type what you want to see, you highlight it, you push Control E, and it automatically converts it for you. Here we have data, and the numbers are surrounded by quote marks. I'll go here, and to the first one I write the number that I expect to see out of that. I highlight it, I push Control E, and it automatically converts it. We can now format it into the format we want. Notice that it looks like FlashFill hasn't quite got it right. It seems to have dropped the decimals. In order to fix that, all we do is we click on the second one and we type the decimal we expect to see. When I click enter, you'll see it now understands that you don't want to stop at the decimal, you want to include the decimal numbers. If you see a list of numbers that look like this, and when we highlight them, you'll notice it's not a number. You may notice these little green dots, which are on left here. If we highlight all these cells and we hover over the little exclamation mark, it tells us that the number in the cell is formatted as text or preceded by apostrophe. So that's useful to know, but doesn't help that much. But if you click on the drop down, you'll notice it tells us the message again. But here's a button that says convert to number, and when we click it, it automatically goes to all the cells highlighted and converts them into a number that Excel now recognizes. There's a function in Excel called value, which attempts to change numbers that Excel's not seeing as a value into a value. So for example, you can see these numbers here have got apostrophes in front of them. If we try and highlight them, it doesn't add up. The Excel function is called value, and you'll see it says it converts a text string that represents a number to a number. And all it says is point at that number. So when I point there, you can already see that it's saying these quotes mean there's text, and it's going to change it into a number. So now when I copy it down, you'll notice it adds it up. We can also do this with a date. So as you can see, I've got some dates here. They look like dates. But if I try and go format them, can you see they're not changing? This means that this is not a valid date. So let's try the value function again. We point at the date, and immediately you'll see it's taking that date and converting it into a number, and this is a valid Excel date. I can copy it down, and I can now format it into whatever format I want. Over here we've got time, and what we've done is we've tried to just add an hour to this time. For some reason it works here when we've got those times, but it doesn't work here. Let's try the value function. So I'm going to point it there. You'll see it gives us a big decimal. This is the way time is represented in Excel. So if we now format it as a proper time, we can see we get various options here. And I now could build a formula that adds an hour to that. As you can see here, we've got a whole bunch of numbers, but it doesn't seem to be seen as a number. We've tried the value formula and it's not working. So we somehow need to get that to be a number. If I investigate this cell, I can see that it looks like, let me try deleting a comma. Okay, so that seems to work. So let's see how we can remove all these commas. So I'm going to highlight them. We can use the find replace tool. So that's Control H. Or you could go here. And what we're going to tell Excel is please find the commas and replace it with nothing, and just make sure that's all clear. When I say replace all, notice that it's gone, replace the comma, and then Excel immediately recognizes it as a number. If we look at this list here, if we investigate it, we'll discover that there's actually two spaces there. So I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go find replace, and when I'm going to, by the find what, I'm going to hit the space bar twice, and then I'm going to go to replace. Just make sure it's empty by just deleting everything, and when I say replace all, you'll see it replaces it, and then Excel recognizes it as a number. If the value function does not work, so for example here we've got some numbers, they don't seem to be working as numbers. If we try the value function, it still tells us that it can't work. What we need to do is find out why Excel is not recognizing it as a number. So if I look here, let me try, I'm going to delete the comma, and it looks like Excel suddenly recognizes it as a number. So I now know that what we need to do is somehow get rid of these commas. So the formula we can use is a formula called substitute. And what this formula does, you tell it where the text is. So I'm going to say please look there. You tell it what the old text is, the thing you want to get rid of. So notice it's the comma, so I'm just going to put a comma in here. What's the new text? So I'm going to replace it with nothing. So to indicate nothing, I'll just put two inverted commas next to each other. And in this case, the instance number, we don't want to specify it. We want all commas to be removed. When I say OK, and I copy it down, you'll notice that it goes away. Here you can see it's still not seeing it as a number. But now if we try the value function, you'll see it can convert it into a number which now adds up. Similarly here, if I look here, let's see why this. Let's first see if this would work with a value function. So again, it gives us a problem. If we come here and we investigate, if you notice there, it looks like there's two spaces there. If I get rid of this two spaces, again it seems to convert. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the substitute again. I'm going to tell Excel, go look at that cell, find the old text. So I'm going to put inverted commas and hit the space bar twice. Close the inverted commas. The new text is two inverted commas next to each other to say replace it with nothing. When I say OK, you'll see it gets rid of it. And again, we need to use the value function just to make it a final number. Occasionally you'll come across situations like this. What we have here is a whole bunch of dates, and when we try and format them, you'll notice it's not acting as a date even though it looks like a date. If I click in, and I just click in once and I click enter, suddenly it seems to recognize it as a date. So to convert these all to dates, we could, I suppose, go to each cell, click in and click out. But another way to do that is to get Excel to do that for you. And one way is to use the find replace. So what we can do is we can highlight the entire column. If I go to the find and select, I go to the replace option. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace one of these items, and I'm going to use a backslash. And I'm actually going to replace it with exactly the same thing. So all we're doing is tell Excel go in, find the backslash, replace it with a backslash. This action means that Excel goes in and out and does what we've just done, where we go in and click enter. So when I say replace all, okay, notice now that it's all right aligned. And if we now go, you'll notice that now this appears to be a valid date. Occasionally you'll come across a situation where, for example, you've got a column of, in this case, dates. And if we try and format them or treat them as a number, you'll notice that it's not formatting. However, if we click in one of them and then just go out and do nothing to it, suddenly it seems to recognize it as a date. So what we need to do is we can manually go through and click in and out of each cell, or else we can get Excel to do it for you. One way to do that is to make use of the paste special command. So in a separate cell, I'm going to type a 1. I'm going to copy it, and we highlight the cells we want to affect. And if you go to paste special, you'll notice that there's a button called multiply. And all we're telling Excel to do is to go into each cell and multiply by 1, which, if it's a date, won't change it. It'll just force it to be a number, and it actually allows Excel to go in and out of cells in the same way as we would need to do. So when I click OK, you'll notice it changes it. It has changed to a number, and that's because it's adopted the formatting of the cell we copied. So now it's just a case of formatting this as a date, and you'll notice the date's changed, but we'll use that one. And when I say OK, we go back here, and all of these are now done. Occasionally, not everything is what it seems. Here I've got a set of numbers. If I look at them, it doesn't seem to be a proper number. I come here and I delete that space, and it seems to be a number. So let me go, and we'll use one of our tricks. And what we'll tell Excel is, please go and find the space. I'm going to hit the space bar and replace it with nothing. When I say replace all, Excel says, no, I can't see any spaces. Okay. The reason for this is there's a different type of space. So when you click the space bar, it's looking for a certain space, but this space here is not exactly that. So if Excel says there's no spaces there, what it means is that the space bar click is not there. Easiest way to address this is to go and actually highlight that little space and copy it, and then use, for example, we could use the find replace, but I'm going to use the substitute function. And what we're going to say is go look at that text. The old text, I'm going to put inverted commas, and I'm going to paste by clicking Control V that item or that character in, which looks like a space. The new text is going to be nothing, so two inverted commas next to each other. And you'll see already it now seems to accept it. When I say OK, we now get our number looking a bit more reasonable. And in this case, we would need to use our value function just to finally get it into a proper number that adds up. In this example, we've got some share data, and I want to see the volume traded per day. But you'll notice if I highlight it, it doesn't give me the average. When I try to do an average, it's not doing it because Excel doesn't seem to be recognizing this as a number. If I click here and I go and I delete the comma, notice that it seems to treat it as a number. I'm just going to undo that. So it looks like the comma is a problem. So I'm going to remove the comma. The function I'm going to use is called substitute. I'm going to tell Excel, please go look at that text there. Replace the comma with nothing, two inverted commas next to each other. And when I say OK, it does what it's told. And that's fine, but notice that it's still not giving me the average. So occasionally this happens. So now we need to force Excel to see that it's a number. So over here I'm going to come and use my value function if necessary. Point to that cell and copy it down. And now it is seen as a proper number and we can get the averages we want. In this example, we've got a bit of data. We've got an ordered quantity and the picked quantity. We want to know what is outstanding. So if we create a simple formula, I say equals what was ordered minus what was picked. I copy it, go all the way down and paste it. You'll notice we've got a whole bunch of value errors. That seems to be because if I look here, you'll notice there's a comma. If I delete the comma, then it seems to be fine. I'm just going to undo. In this case, I'm going to use a tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this entire column. I'm going to push Control H for the find replace. And I'm going to tell Excel I want it to find all the commas and replace it with nothing. So I just leave it blank. When I say replace all, it says it's found it. I say close, and you'll notice it's now giving me the actual outstanding picks. Here we've got some data. We need to add it up. If I come to the bottom here and I add it up, I discover that that doesn't make sense. How can all these numbers only equal that amount? So if I look closely at these numbers, they left aligned. If I highlight a few of them, they don't seem to be showing a sum here. If I play with it a bit, if I go here, let's delete that. Okay, that's good. It looks like it's a space issue. So let's just highlight all of this. I'm going to Control H. What I'm going to do is under find what, I'm going to hit my space key, replace with nothing. I'm going to leave it blank. When I say replace all, it tells me that there are no spaces here. What this tells me is that even though this looks like a space, it's probably not a space. So the way to get around that is I'm actually going to click there and actually highlight that little space and copy it. Now in this case I'm actually going to create a formula. The formula I'm going to use is something called substitute. I'm going to go find the substitute. I'm going to tell it to look at that text over there. What is the old text? In inverted commas I'm going to push Control V. So the thing I copied earlier, replace it with nothing. And when I say OK, copy it down. Notice we've got that. Copy it and paste this here as well. But what you will notice is that even though we've done it right and it seems to be looking better, still not adding it up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to wrap a value function around it, which tells Excel that is a value. So that looks a bit better. Paste it. Just to make it look neat, so we're going to format it. And now, I'm just going to copy these across. And you'll see now we get our totals. One of the most important areas of Excel use is the use of dates, and more importantly making use of valid dates that Excel recognizes. So just to explain that concept, here we have a whole number of dates. Each of these in different places or to different people represent a valid Excel date. But how do we know which one Excel actually sees as a valid date? The important thing to realize is that dates in Excel are actually numbers based on the 1st of January 1900. A way to see if Excel actually sees a date as a proper date is what you can do is you go to your formatting, and if we go to general, when I say OK, anything that's a valid date will actually change to a number. Anything that doesn't change is Excel not recognizing as a date. Another way is if I change it to a date format, for example, I'm going to put it so that you see the full name of the calendar of the month. Notice that only one of them changed. So at the moment this is the only cell that actually has a valid date in it. Just going to undo. Another way to check is to just add 1 to the date. So I'm going to go here and say that plus 1, and you'll notice that only the cells that seem to have a valid date in it actually do something with the number. You will have noticed that this one here also acted as a date, but this is a separate issue that is dealt with elsewhere. Another way to test for a valid date is to make use of the is number formula in Excel. So you'll see we've got it here, is number, and all this says is point at a cell and it will tell you whether it is a number or not. You'll see there it says false, and when I copy it down, notice that it says false for anything that Excel doesn't see as a number, and true for what it does see as a number. And keeping in mind that in Excel a date is merely a number from the 1st of January 1900, this will give you a good indication of what dates Excel sees as dates and which it doesn't. The flash fill command in Excel 2013 and higher is a very useful tool for getting dates to be seen as proper dates by Excel. So just to explain flash fill, under data there's a flash fill button. If you see data that for whatever reason is not in the format you want, you can click just to the right of it. So in this case I want to see 23rd of January 2014, but you'll notice that if I try and format these dates, it's not being treated as a proper date. So over here I type what I want to see for the first one, 23rd of Jan 2014 and click enter. I highlight it, I click on data and flash fill, and you'll notice that Excel immediately converts it so that it is a valid date. And you'll notice we can now change it to almost anything. Here we've got quote marks that are causing problems. Again, for flash fill, we type what we want to see. So this is 30th of May 2015. I highlight it, and the shortcut for flash fill is Control E. You'll notice that it does it immediately. And here we've got dates with a full stop in it. So I can see this looks like the 1st of May 2010. So I put 1 May 2010. I highlight it and push Control E, and you'll see it immediately converts it into a valid Excel date. Another useful tool for converting dates that Excel is not seeing as a proper date to be recognizable by Excel is under Data and the Text to Columns item, but not in the traditional way that most people expect. So just to show you some examples, here I've got dates. On this machine we expect it to go day, month, year, and as you can see this is month, day, year. If I try and format it, you'll see that Excel is not treating this as a valid date. What we can do is we can highlight it, go to text to columns. Now normally you'd worry about this, but we're just going to skip these first two, and this is the feature we're looking for. You'll see we're going to tell Excel that what we've given it is a date, so we click here, and then what we have here is the option to tell Excel not what we want to see, but what have you given Excel. So at the moment you can see that we seem to have given it month, day, year. So I'm going to look here for MDY, standing for month, day, year, and watch what happens when we click finish. It immediately converts it, and let's see now. Notice that it is now a valid Excel date, which is possible to be formatted. What about this date? So you can see it's a straight number, and I can clearly see that it seems to be the 1st of September 2011. But if I go try and format it as a date, notice I get a very strange, what looks like a very big date. The reason for this is that Excel works on the number of days from the 1st of January 1900, and as this is a number, it's a very big number in the 20 millions, Excel is working out what date is 20 million days from the 1st of January 1900. But that's not what we mean. We want Excel to split it by 1st of September 2011. So we can highlight it, we go text to columns, we can ignore the first two, we tell it it's a date, we then look here and it looks like it's year, month, day, which is currently what it's set at, year, month, day. When I click finish, it immediately converts it. Similarly here, we've got a slightly different situation, so it looks like it's the 13th of December 2010. We highlight it, text to columns, ignore the first two, tell it it's a date, and now it looks like it's day, month, year. There's DMY, day, month, year. When I click finish, it immediately converts it. Here's a popular one, especially with SAP. So we seem to have the date, but there's full stops in between. You can highlight it, text to columns, ignore the first two, tell it's a date. It looks like it's year, month, day, year, month, day. When I say finish, it automatically converts it. One of the first things to try when you've got some dates, so for example here I've got what looks like dates, but when I try and format them, notice it's not formatting. Similarly here, is a function in Excel called date value, which acts in a very similar way to the value function. So So I can go look for it. It's under date and time. It's called date value. And all you have to do is point at the date that's not a valid date. And you'll notice that it takes text, you see the quote marks there, and converts it into a number, which then is a valid Excel date. So I can copy this down. And if I try and format it, you'll notice it changed format. Over here, again, we've got some dates. When I try and format them, it doesn't treat it as a date. Let's see if date value works. I can point there. I can see it's going to work. I can copy it down. And again, I've got proper dates. And if I want, I could then format it back to look like this, but now it's an Excel recognized date. What about this one here? I seem to have 25th of 12th 2009. Let's try the date value. You'll notice I seem to have a problem there. And when I do that, I get value messages. So date value is good, but there's some situation where it works and there's some situations where it doesn't work. And just depending on your regional settings and a number of other factors, there's no surefire way of saying when it or won't work. You just need to experiment with it. Although you can use various tools to convert dates that are not valid Excel dates into a valid date, occasionally you need to use formula so that you don't have to click the tools continuously. Perhaps you get a file that's always in this format and you want to set up a template so that you can copy and paste it in, and Excel just calculates it for you. In order to do this, what we need to do is extract from this text, because remember that is what Excel sees, what the day, the month, and the year is. So just over here, I'm going to write day, month, year, and I'm just going to put date here, because this is what we're trying to extract. So because this is text, we can see that it looks like the very left hand side, the two characters on the left, is the month. So I'm going to go here, and in Excel we've got a function called left, and what the left function does is I can point at a text and I tell it how many characters from the left hand side I want. So in this case it's 1, 2, so I put a 2, and you'll see it extracts the 12th month. When I copy it down, it extracts out of it the months. The next seems to be the day, the 25. In this case it's not on the left or the right, it's in the middle. So the function we can use is a function called mid. And what mid says is go look at that cell. You then need to tell Excel where to start. So I can see it looks like it must start at 1, 2, 3, the 4th character. And how many characters must it extract? So I'm going to say 2 characters. And when I say OK and copy down, you'll notice it goes and extracts from these characters just the middle ones. In order to pull out the year now, I can see it's on the right hand side. There's a function in Excel called write. I point at the cell. I tell it how many characters. So I can see it's going to be 4 characters. When I say OK, I can copy it down and it pulls out the year. I now need to combine that so that it turns into a valid Excel date. In some cases you can use concatenate, but the better function to use is a function called date. So when I go into my date and time, there's a function called date. When I click OK, it now asks me where's the year, where's the month, where's the day. So I'm going to point, that's the year, that's the month, that's the day. And you'll notice that it takes the year, the month, and the day, and it converts it into a number. When I say OK, copy it down, you'll see it has now taken this information in a format that my computer doesn't recognize it, breaks it up, and then converts it into a valid Excel date that I could now change the formatting of. Using the same technique, we can work on any date that is seen as text. So let's do this one here. You can see that this number is split. First 4 characters is the year, looks like the month, then the day. So I'm going to go to the year, and I'm going to use my left function again. So I'm going to tell Excel, look at that cell there, pull out 4 characters. You can see the 2011, copy it down. The month seems to be there in the middle, so I'm going to use the mid function. I'm going to point over there. I'm going to tell it to start at character number 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th character, and go for 2 characters. And we've got the 9. Copy that down. And the day seems to be on the right hand side. So I'm going to use the right function for 2 characters. And you'll see it pulls out those numbers. Again, we use the date function to join them together to make sure it's a valid Excel date. So we go to the date function. I tell it that's the year, that's the month, that's the day. When I say OK, you'll notice it converts it into a valid Excel date. And you could apply the same techniques to the other items. One of the more difficult problems to solve with Excel with regards to dates is where a column of dates appears and for some reason Excel recognizes some but others it doesn't seem to recognize. This is a very dangerous situation because what is happening is Excel is assuming one format, so either day, month, year or month, day, year, and then applying that to all the data it receives. So if you look closely at this data, you'll see my computer expects day, month, year, and so this one is wrong because it's pretty much showing month, day, year. So on my computer, Excel doesn't understand what the 25th month is. So that's fine when the numbers are above 12. But over here you'll notice when we've got a 12 and a 2, Excel has decided that, oh, it's figured it out, and now it's going to make it, as we go, in this case, year, month, day, it's the 12th of February. However, the chances are very good that this date should actually be the 2nd of December if you follow the sequence. You probably should have a 12 and then a 2, and then Excel would hopefully recognize that it's in American style format, month, day, year. So not only are these wrong because they're not formatting as a date, but even the dates that are actually formatting as a date are incorrect simply because they've put the month in the day and the day in the month. So we have to come up with a formula that first figures out, is it a date or not? If it's not a date, it's treated as text, so we have to use our left, right, mid. If it is a date, then we're going to have to use our date functions to extract the day and month and switch them around. So the first thing we need to do is figure out which dates are numbers and which aren't. The reason we're going to look for a number is because we know a date, a valid Excel date, should be able to be formatted as a number. So you'll see it should be a number. So we're going to first make use of the isNumber function. And all we're going to say is look at that cell there, please, and tell me if it's a number. So you'll see for the first 3 it's false, for the next 2 it's true. Now let's work through one aspect. So if we know that it is true, this is a valid date, we know we still have a problem because the 2 and the 12 are on the wrong sides. So the only way to do that is to break the date down into its components, year, month, day, and then reverse the date. So we have functions that can do that. So in Excel there's a function called year, and what year does is if you point at a valid date, you'll see it looks at the actual number and converts it into the correct year. So I'm going to say OK. I'm I've got a function called month. It looks at this date and it pulls out what it thinks is the month. And there's a function in here called day. If you click on a date, it pulls through the day. So you can see that out of this date we've pulled 2013 to 12. If I copied it down, it will give me the same thing. If I copy it up, you'll notice it gives me value errors, but we don't mind that because we've got another solution for those. So just for now, we want to create a proper date using the date function, but we need to reverse it so the year stays the same. What was previously the month, or Excel thought was the month, that one there, is not actually the month. We need to use what it sees as the day. And the day, we're going to convert it to look at the month. And when I say OK, it now creates a date, a valid Excel date, but a date that's more in line with this sequence. Okay, and if I copy this up, I get value errors, but we're not going to worry about that now. Now we need to work on the dates that are not being seen as dates, that for whatever reason are being seen as text. So wherever there is not a number. In that case, because we are working with text, we now need to use things like left, right and mid to split this date into its components year, month, day, to then convert it into a valid date. So if I go to the year, I can see that the year seems to be on the right hand side. Last 4 characters. So I'm going to go and use the right function. Click here and pull through 4 characters, and you'll see that 2013 is going to come through. The month I can see is on the far left. So I'm going to use a function called left. Click on the text. We're going to say we only want 2 characters. These 2 characters here. The day is in the middle here, so we can use the mid function. In the mid function, I'm going to click on here. I need to tell it where to start, so I can see it must start on character 1, 2, 3, the 4th character. And how many characters must it incorporate? It's going to be those 2. When I say OK, I've now broken down the text into 3 main components. And I can now use the date function, and I can tell Excel that that's the year, that's the month, that's the day. When I click OK, you'll see it now converts it into a valid date. I can copy this down. Okay, you'll notice that these look okay, but then these are giving us nonsensical numbers. But again, we're not worried about that because we're now going to build function that chooses which of these solutions to use depending on whether what it's looking at is text or a date. Now that we've done all the hard work to convert this, which is messy dates split going between text and actual dates, into the correct date, I'm going to use an if function, and all we're going to say is please look at this is number test and tell me, is it a number? So I'm going to say, is it equal to true? If it is true, then I expect it to use this reverse date. If however it's false, therefore it's not a number, it must be text, then I want it to use whatever date we've calculated there. When I say OK, you'll see it pulls it through. We've just formatted slightly differently. And when I copy it down, it is now going, and for the first 3, it uses these dates here. And for the next 2, it uses the dates we've calculated here. In this example, we've got some dates here. If you highlight them, you'll notice nothing's happening down here. If I try and format them in some other date format, you'll notice nothing's happening. So Excel's not recognizing this as a date. We need to get it to recognize it as a date. So one of the first things we'll generally try is a formula. In this case, it's called date value. And all we need to do is point at the date. You'll see it turned it into a number. We can copy this down. So we get a whole bunch of numbers there. But that number is acceptable because when we format it now as a date, you'll see it converts it into valid Excel dates. In this example, we've got two different types of dates. First one is split over various columns. The other one now has full stops in between it. So for this one here, we've got various columns. We need to convert it into a date that's acceptable to Excel. So the formula to use here is called date. And the date formula asks you where's the year. So over here, where's the month? So over here, where's the day? So over here, you can say OK. You can copy it and paste it down. We've now got the invoice date. The next thing, we've got the delivery date. Now we could fix it there, but I'm just going to copy and paste it here. And when we're over here, I'm going to use a tool. So under data, text to columns, and ignore the first two. We're going to tell it it's a date. And it looks like it's going day, month, year. Day, DMY, day, month, year. I'm going to say finish. You'll see it's converted it. So it looks like it's a proper date. It looks correct. We're now going to work out how many days till delivery. So I'm going to just say equals that date minus that date. And it tells me how many days between invoice and delivery. And then over here we can just work out an average. And you'll see we get that information. In this example, we've been given two different date types. So the day, month, year split into three different columns, and then a delivery date with full stops. The difference here is we don't want to use a tool, we want to make use of formulas. So the first one, we just need to convert this into a valid Excel date. So I'm going to use the date function, and I can tell it that's the year, that's the month, that's the day. It's OK. We can copy that down. So we've done the first one. The second one is slightly more complex. We need to turn this and extract from here the day, month, year. You can see there's full stops that is doing that, but notice that it's not consistent. So here we've got two characters, then we've got one character. So we're going to have to use the text functions, left, right, mid, but we're going to have to tell it exactly how many characters to do. So what we need to first figure out is where's the first full stop in each case. There's a function in Excel called find. And what this does, it says what text do you want to find. So I'm just going to put a full stop. Where must it go look for that full stop? Over here. The start number will sort out just now. I'm going to say OK. I can copy this. So we now know where the first full stop is. We now need to know where the second full stop is. So we're going to use the find function again. Again, what we're looking for a full stop. Where must it look for it? Over here. But now we need to tell it not to start at the beginning again. It needs to start after the first full stop. So I'm going to say start looking only when you go past that character, but we need to put a +1 here, so that it only starts at character number 4 and then finds the next full stop. Say OK. So we now know where the first full stop is, where the second full stop is. What is the gap between the full stops? So we can see how wide is this. Is there one character or two? So I'm going to say equals the second full stop minus the first full stop. In this case, we're going to just do a -1. So we now know how many characters are in the middle there. So here you'll see a 2 because it's telling us there's 2 characters we're interested in. Once we know where all the full stops are, now it's just a case of pulling them out. So the day we know is going to use the left function because it's on the left hand side. I'm going to say look there. How many characters must it pull through? Well, it must pull through up until the first full stop, which is up until that one. But notice it's going to pull through 18 and the full stop. So I'm going to put a -1 here, so we only get the 18. The month, you can see, is in the middle here. So I'm going to go and look for the mid function. The text is over here. Where must it start? Well, it needs to start after the first full stop. So I'm going to say, please start over here, but +1. How many characters must it pull through? Well, we've calculated it over here, so I'm going to use that cell. And notice that it's pulling out the 3, so that looks okay. And then the year, and this seems to be consistent. It's always 4 characters on the right hand side. So I'm going to use the right function, point at that text, and make it 4 characters. So now we've extracted out of here the day, month, year, converted to the date using the date function again. So here's the year, here's the month, here's the day. How many days till the delivery will be that minus that date there. And now we should be able to copy and paste all these down. And you'll notice that it's done it. And right at the bottom here we can work out our average again. And we get that number. In this example, we've got a date, but for some reason there's a 1 in front of it. So this date here, for example, is 24th of June 2013, but that 1's going to give us a problem. So we need to get rid of it. We need to convert it into a valid Excel date. So I'm just going to put some headings here. The day, the month, and the year. Convert it into a date. So the day looks like it's always on the right hand side, and it looks like it's always 2 characters. So I'm going to use the right function. I'm going to point there and say 2 characters. The month, it's in the middle there, so I'm going to use the mid function. Point there. Where must it start? Well, it looks like it's character 1, 2, 3. It must start at the 4th character, and it must go for 2 characters long. And the year, even though it's on the left hand side, we're trying to get rid of this 1, so I'm actually going to use the mid function. Look at that cell. I'm going to say don't start at 1, but start at character number 2 and go for 2 characters. And you'll see it gives us 13. Now we'd prefer if that's at 2013, and because we are in the year 2000, it's as simple as adding 2000 onto that. Now we've got the components. I can use the date function and tell it that that's the year, that's the month, that's the day. Gives us that. I'm going to copy it and paste it. And we've taken this date and we've pulled out a Excel acceptable date. In this example, we've got an order date, required time of arrival, and the estimated time of arrival. We want to compare and see if the estimated time of arrival is within the required time of arrival. Notice here we've got 18.02. Here we seem to have 2 dates, almost a range. So what we need to do is, out of this, firstly extract what the RTA 1 is and 2, so what's the lower and upper limit, and then work out the ETA, and again convert all of these into valid dates. So let's work on RTA1 first. We need to pull out the day, month, year and turn it into a date. It looks like it's fairly consistent. So again, I can make use of my text functions, left, right, mid. So it looks like the day is on the left there. That's the left function. I'm going to say look in here and pull out 2 characters. The month, we're going to use the mid function. I'm going to say look in here, start at number 1, 2, 3, 4 and go for 2 characters. And the year, we're just going to type in 2012 because that's the year we're in. To create a valid date, we make use of the date function. So I'm going to say that's the year, that's the month, that's the day. When I say OK, it gives me a date. So we've taken out of here the first RTA. I can copy it down now and paste it. And it automatically pulls out the first one. We now want to pull out the second one on this side. So the day, I'm going to use the mid function again. I'm going to say look in that same cell there. It must start now at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Start at character 7 for 2. So it's putting out the 25, which makes sense. The month, in this case we can see it's on the right hand side, so I'm going to make use of the right function. Look there and tell it for 2 characters. And the year again, I'm just going to type 2012. And to get a proper Excel date, we use the date function. We tell it the year is this, the month is this, the day is this. You can highlight it, copy it. So now we've pulled out the RTA 1 and 2. The ETA is slightly easier. There's only one estimated time of arrival. So the day, I'm going to make use of the left function. Look over there for 2 characters. The month, I can see it's on the right hand side, so we're going to use the right function. Again, 2 characters. The year, I'm going to type 2012 in. I'm going to get an ETA date using my date function, year, month, day. Copy it and I can paste it. In order to make this more useful, we're just going to put something here which tells us whether we're on track or not. So I'm going to make use of an if function. And I'm going to tell Excel, please see if that cell over there is less than, and for now we're just going to worry about the highest RTA date. So is our ETA, the estimated time of arrival, less than, so we're going to get it earlier than the required time? If it is true, I'm going to put the word on track. If it's false, we can use anything. I'm going to say delayed, or let's say late rather. So you'll see it says on track. I can copy and paste it. And now very quickly I can see where there's potentially a problem. If I just want to see how many days we are, I'm going to say let us compare the ETA from the required number of days. So if it's on track, we're -7. We're 7 days earlier. So we can see if we're going to be late, how late we're going to be. In this example, we've got a commencement date, but for some reason, some of these are valid dates. So if you look here, we highlight those. If we went to date, you'll see it seems to be acting like a date. But if you came here, these are dates. But when I try and change them, they don't seem to be acting as dates. So we need to create a column that extracts this and turns this into dates. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to have to do different things for situations where it's text or where it's already a date. If it's already a date, we can just take that information. If it's not a date, we need to do some work on it. So what we're going to do is I'm first going to test whether this is a date. And remember, a date is actually just a number. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to write a test, and we've got a function in Excel called isNumber. And I'm going to say, please look at that cell and tell me if it's a number. Copy and paste it so I can see the trues and falses. Then what we need to do is, if it's false, if it's not a number, we need to now break it apart. So again, I'm just going to give some heading here. And what you'll see is I can see, looks like it's on the left hand side, there's the days. So I'm going to say left, click here, 2 characters. The month seems to be in the middle. Use the mid function. Text, it must start at 1, 2, 3, 4 and go for 2 characters. And the year seems to be on the right hand side, so we're going to use the right function for 4 characters. If I copy and paste this down, you'll see that where they're the trues, it seems to be giving nonsensical numbers, but we're not worried about that now. I'm going to convert this into a date using the date function. So that's the year, that's the month, that's the day. Copy it, paste it. Again, nonsensical numbers there. But now we can make sure and pull through the correct date, and to do this we're going to use an if function. So I'm going to say if function, is that cell over there equal to false? If it is, use that date. If it's not, use that date. When we say OK, I can copy it, paste it, and I'll just change the formatting to be a valid date. And there we go. One of the easiest ways to identify duplicates is to make use of the conditional formatting tool. So for example, here we've got a whole bunch of bank account numbers, but we're worried that some of these bank account numbers are duplicated. We're looking for phantom employees. What we can do is you highlight the column with all the bank account numbers in. I click on conditional formatting, and you'll notice there's a whole bunch of little wizards here. The one we're looking for is over here for duplicate values. When I click on it, you'll see it specifies, do you want to see the duplicates or the uniques? So I'm going to say duplicates. And if we want to, there's a whole bunch of formatting options. But for now, we're going to leave it as light red fill with dark red text. When I say OK, if we scroll down, you'll notice that any bank account number that has a duplicate is identified in red. If we wanted to see them all together, a good way to do that is to switch on the filter. And one of the things you can do is filter by color. So we'll say we want to see all cells that look like that. And here we have it. So that, and that are the same bank account numbers with these names, and that are the same. We can use a formula to determine whether, in this case, a bank account number is duplicated somewhere else in the list. In order to do this, we're going to make use of the COUNTIF formula. So if we go find it, you'll see there's a function called COUNTIF. Now in this case, we're not going to use the COUNTIF and not the COUNTIFs. Let's say OK. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell Excel the range we're looking at. We're going to tell Excel to look at this entire column. and we're going to put dollar signs on. What must Excel look for? Well, it must look for that bank account number. So we're asking Excel to look to see how many times, count how many times you see this number in this list. When we say OK, and I copy it down, you'll notice it goes and it specifies. So for example, what we're saying there is Excel has found that bank account number in this entire list once. You'll see over here we've got one with 2. If you want to make use of this, then generally I recommend you put the filter on, and for example I can ask it to show me all the 2s and 3s. So 1 is acceptable, so there's a single bank account number. There's seems to be some that have got 2 duplicates and some with 3. When I push OK, you get the listing. Occasionally, when you're trying to find, identify and remove duplicates, not only are you interested in whether it is or isn't a duplicate, but you also want to know what instance of the duplicate is it. So is this the first of 2 duplicates, or is it just the first cell? We can achieve this with a formula using the COUNTIF formula and being clever with the dollar signs. So what I'm going to do is go to the COUNTIF, and the key here is when I select my range, I'm going to tell it to look here, and by putting in semicolon there, it's going from B2 to B2. So it's starting here and ending here. However, I'm going to put dollar signs only at the start. So I'm telling Excel, always start at B2, but as I copy you down, get longer and longer. The criteria will be that cell there. So when I say OK, it tells me 1. What Excel is doing is it's looking at that cell and saying it's seen that cell once. If I copy it down, when I come, for example, to here, what Excel is doing is it's saying, I'm looking at that cell, I'm comparing it to this list, I've only seen it once. If I come down, you'll notice then over here there's a 2. What that's telling us is that this bank account number must appear somewhere over here for it to be the second one. The benefit of this is you can now fairly easily, using the filter, if you only want to see the unique items, you can click and say, I just want to see the ones. And now only the first instance of every item will be shown, and you can copy in this, and this would then be a list of the unique items. Or I can say show me the 2s and 3s, and this will now show me the duplicates. So either way, by using this technique, you can get and identify which instance of the duplicate you are looking at. In this situation, we want to work out where the duplicate entries are. Now, for ease of reference, I've already highlighted them in yellow, but let's pretend we don't know that. The problem is that a duplicate is where the salesperson code, the date, product A, product B, and product C sales are the same. We can use the COUNTIF, but it's not very easy to then look across all of these. So a simple way to get around that is to create a unique lookup reference. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make use of a function called concatenate. And all we're going to do is we're going to combine the columns that need to be unique. So it's going to be that, with that, with that, with that, with that. So what we've created now, I'm going to copy it down, is a single column that combines all of these. It's now possible to create a formula that checks whether this is duplicated anywhere else. because if that is the case, then this must be a true duplicate. So we can use our COUNTIF formula again. And in this case, we're going to tell Excel, please look at this range here, our new column. Put the dollar signs on. And what must it look for? Well, it must look for that cell there when it's over here. And as we copy it down, it will move down. When I say OK, you'll see it says 11. I'm going to copy it down. And notice that it tells us where all the duplicates are. So not only the ones we've highlighted, but notice there's quite a few here. If you look at them, they are exactly the same. So by using a concatenate, you can take multiple columns, turn them into one column, which we can then use to write formulas against. Another useful tool that's available in the more recent versions of Excel is the ability to immediately remove the duplicates. So what we've got here is a listing, and we want to remove the duplicates. Now in the first instance, we're going to assume that a duplicate is as follows. All these columns must be exactly the same, and you'll notice we've highlighted some of them. So what I can do is I'll highlight the block of data, and under the data tab there's a remove duplicates button. If I click it, what's nice about this tool is it checks what is considered a duplicate. So in this case, we're going to say that all these columns have to be the same to be considered a duplicate. When I say OK, notice that the yellow ones disappeared. It tells us it found 10 duplicate values found and they were removed. 77 unique values remain. So the first one it finds remains, the rest are deleted. So when I say OK, all the duplicates are removed. I'm just going to undo this. And if we do the same thing again, so I'm going to click on the remove duplicates, but this time I'm going to say that a duplicate only relates to the salesperson code. So what I'm asking Excel is please tell me all the unique salesperson's codes. So I expect to see SPO2, and I'll probably see all of these, but I don't want to see those again. So we're trying to get a unique list of the salesperson's codes or names. When I say OK, you'll notice now it's found 79 duplicates and removed them. There's 8 unique values remaining, and now you've got that list. Another useful tool to identify and remove duplicates is here under the data. There's something called an advanced filter. Most people are familiar with the filter, but not necessarily the advanced filter. The filter itself, if we just switch it on, as useful as it is, we can pretty much see what the unique items are. It's quite difficult to remove them in this raw state. However, there is something called advanced. And what advanced does is you've got a database, and then you can, in a separate section, put the relevant headings down. So you'll see we've just pretty much copied these. And a little bit later I'll show you how you can set it up so you can actually specify what must be extracted. But for now, what we're going to do is highlight the entire area. I click on advanced. What Excel asks is, what do you want to do? Do you want to filter the list in one place? So basically leave it here, just hide the unnecessary ones. Or do you want to copy to another location? So we're going to do that, copy to another location. It checks, it says I've got the list, and it's always useful just to check that Excel has included it all. And then it asks for the criteria. And Excel has guessed, but what we can do is we can highlight this area. Where do you want to copy it to? For now I'm just going to put it over here somewhere. And then it asks, do you want to see all the records that meet this criteria? In this case we've put nothing, or only the unique records. So I'm for now going to say unique records only. And when I say OK, what you'll see is it copies these items, pastes them here. And you'll notice that the duplicates, these ones here, have all disappeared. Just going to delete that. The other benefit of the advanced filter is we can actually put some criteria in here. So what I can do, I can say I only want where product A is, let's say, bigger than 500, and product C, for example, is also bigger than 500. If I do the advanced filter again, we're just checking the list is fine. The criteria, you'll see we highlight it. I'm going to copy it to another location. I'm going to put it over here again. And again, I'm going to ask for unique records only. When I say OK, you'll notice the list is much shorter, because not only is it filtering on these, so it's only finding where product A is above 500 and product C is above 500. It's then applying for the unique formulas only. In this situation, what we want to do is we want to create a template using formulas so that we can copy and paste the data set in, and it will automatically spit out a unique listing. Now we could do something similar by making use of the remove duplicates button, but we want to actually create a formula that does it. We don't want to have to remember every time what is and isn't a duplicate. So the way to do this is, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to insert some columns here. Now in this case, a duplicate is where all of these columns are the same. So the first thing we have to do is make use of our concatenate, and we're going to say create a unique column by joining all those together. We can copy and paste that down. The next thing we then need to do is identify which instance of a duplicate we're looking at. So in this case, we're going to use the COUNTIF formula. And what we're going to tell Excel is look at a moving range. So you'll see I've highlighted it and I've said go A2 to A2, and I'll put $signs on the first one. And what is the criteria? What is it looking for? I'm going to say look over there. When I copy it down, you'll notice it goes 1, 1, 1, 1. Then there's a 2. What that is telling us is this unique reference, that row there, it's the second time it's seen it, because you can see it's over here. So that's quite useful. But now what we need to do is create something that will tell us that we want to see that one, but we don't want to see any of these. We want to build a formula perhaps over here to do it automatically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a unique listing. I'm going to make use of an if function. What I'm going to say is look at that cell there. Is it equal to 1? If it is equal to 1, then what it can do is take the cell above and add 1. But if it's not, just take the cell above. Just to show you what that's going to do. So when I copy it down, notice it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 7. And because this is a duplicate, it just repeats 7 again and again. And then when the new item comes, it goes 8, 9. That's a duplicate, so it repeats itself. Now that we've created this, we've effectively got a unique listing here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come here. I'm just going to create a table. We'll just do that many for now. And I'm going to make use of a function called VLOOKUP. So what this VLOOKUP is saying is please look up, please find the number 1, Where must it find it? It must find it in this table over here. You must just remember to put the dollar signs on. What column are we going to use? Just to make it easier, I'm going to tell it to look up there, and I will address it shortly. And the range lookup is false. And the last thing I just want to do is just put this with the correct dollar sign. So when I say OK, I'm just going to put 2 over here. So what I've done here is the formula is saying look up the number 1 in this table, and because we've created unique identifiers, it finds the 1 and it pulls through column 2. I can copy that across. I can just go one more. You can see this over here is shown, it is a date, but it's been formatted as a number. I'm just going to quickly use a format I prefer. Copy this and paste it. So what you'll see is it goes 1, 2, 3 up to number 7, which is this one here. The next one it looks for is 8, so it skips all the duplicates and pulls through number 8. So the way the VLOOKUP works is it'll go along, it'll find the first 7, ignore the rest. And what we can now do, we can just copy this. You'll see at some point all the NAs come. We can remove them or put a formula around it. And what we have is now a template where next month we can copy and paste the data in, and it'll automatically turn into a unique list, which we can then use in other calculations. In this example, we need to make use of a tool to get rid of the duplicates in this long list, which is 2 lists combined. So what I can do is I can highlight the entire area. Under data, you've got remove duplicates. And what we're going to tell Excel is a duplicate is where the salesperson, transaction ID, date, products A, B, C are the same, but the list can be different. So it could be list 1, it could be list 2, it doesn't matter. These are the duplicates. The list number is not the identifier. When I say OK, you'll see it tells me that 65 duplicates were found and removed, and there's 82 remaining. When I click OK, we're left with this, and you can see the control totals up here. In this example, we want to use some formulas to extract the unique list. Because we've got multiple columns and we are considering a duplicate where all of these are the same, we're going to make use of a concatenate. So the formula I'm going to create, concatenate, and I'll tell it to combine that with that, with that. We can now copy this all the way down. So what we have now is a unique reference, and then using the COUNTIF formula, I can work out which of these are duplicates. So I'm going to specify that the criteria it's looking for is that cell there, and it must look in this entire range. We mustn't forget to put the dollar signs on. And when I say OK, you'll see it tells me that it sees this item twice. Copy it down, and you'll see there's various numbers here. If I want to now extract that, what I could do is go to data, put my filter on, could then go over here and I can say I only want to see items that appear once. When I say OK, the shortlist appears, and because of how clever the data filter is, I can highlight it and copy it, and you'll notice that it's highlighting only the visible cells. And I can place it, for example, over here and paste it, and what I now have is the unique items out of this list. In this example, we want to create a template so that each month we can just copy and paste the data in, and automatically we'll get a unique listing here. In order to do this, given that I'm going to use a VLOOKUP just now, I'm just going to insert some columns here. The first thing we're going to do is use a concatenate just to make sure that we can identify what a duplicate value is. So we're going to highlight all of those, join them together, so that we now have a single column with all the key columns combined, so we can now see if there's a duplicate. I now want to know the instance number of this duplicate, so we're going to go find our COUNTIF. The criteria I'm going to say is look at that cell there. The range, what I wanted to do is to start here, and when it's over here it must just look at that one cell. So I'm going to put dollar signs only on the first part of the array. When I click OK, I get a 1. If I copy it down, you'll notice there's all ones here, and then eventually it becomes 2, etc. What we now need to do is, given that we have this, we're now going to create a unique number for each of these. The way we're going to do that is I'm going to use an if function. I'm going to tell Excel if that cell over there is equals to a 1, then just take the cell above and add 1 to it. If it's not equal to a 1, then just take the cell above. When I copy it down, you'll see it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's creating all these unique numbers. But eventually, when it starts finding duplicates, you'll notice that it stays on that number until the next unique one appears. What we can now do is over here somewhere, I can create my list of unique numbers. I'll just copy it down for a while. And I'm going to use some column references. So I'm just going to put 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here. And we now build our VLOOKUP. So what the VLOOKUP is going to say is what number must it look up. So I'm going to say please look for that unique number. I'm just going to put a dollar sign on the column. Where must Excel look for it? It must look for it in that table over there. We put our dollar signs on. What column must it bring through? We could type in 2, 3, 4, etc. I'm just going to use this helper row here. I'll put my dollar signs on the 4. And the range lookup, I'm going to put false. So I'm telling Excel to find an exact match. When I say OK, you'll see it finds SP001. If I copy it down, it goes on like that. I can copy this, paste it. Let's just put another one here. So what you've now got is Excel has gone and looked for the 1, found the 1, and effectively pulled through all that information. If we go down here, when it gets to 77, you'll see it pulls through this information, but the next number it looks for is 78. So it skips all these other 77s and pulls the first 78. And what you'll see is in this case we've pulled too many numbers, so just to make it look neater, we can delete those. And now what we've got is at any time, if we put any data over here in this section here, the formula will automatically extract only the unique items. One of the useful tools when you want to take a column like this and split it so that certain components are in their own column is under Data. It's the Text to Columns tool. So we're going to show you a few times how it works and tell you some of the special aspects of it. So the first thing we're going to do here, we're going to highlight this. We can see that there seems to be a dash between the numbers, which indicates what should be in which column. If I highlight it, I push Text to Columns, this pops up. We've got a choice of delimited or fixed width. Delimited means it's separated by something, a character of some sort, in this case a dash. If I say next, I'm going to say it's not a tab, it's something other. We're going to put a dash in there. You'll see immediately it looks like it's getting it right. Always useful to come down here, just check that it's making sense. If I say next, this screen then allows me to specify what type of data you've got, or if you do not want to import something. For now, we're going to just accept it as is. When I say finish, you'll see it immediately puts them into separate columns. I'm just going to undo it. If we again highlight the same thing, Text to Columns, this time we're going to use fixed width. In this case, it's possible. When I say next, you'll see Excel now wants to know what you want to separate. And I can click. So I'm going to click there, 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 and there. What I'm telling Excel is I want that column, I want the dash in its own column, the number, dash in its own column, the number. When I say next, you'll see, again, it's asked me for that. And this time I'm going to click on that column. You'll see it's highlighted. And I'm going to say do not import. Click on that one, do not import. When I say finish, notice that it's done the exact same thing, but it hasn't imported the dashes. You will notice, however, I'm just going to undo here, or just notice this first. Notice that that says 1, 2. When I undo, notice what it actually said was 0, 0, 1. If we are happy that the 0, 0, 1 turns to a 1, then that's fine. But a little bit later, I'm going to show you how we can address that as well. Just to show you, this one was pretty much standard. You can see it's 3 characters, then a dash, 5 characters, then a dash. This tool is also useful where you've got situations like this. And what we've got is a product description, and it looks like the hashes are separating the columns, but you can see they're all different lengths. So again, we can highlight it. We go Text to Columns. It's definitely delimited. So I'm going to go next, and I'm going to say other. I'm going to change that to a hash. Immediately you'll see it looks like it's correct. Always useful to go down here. If I'm happy with that, I can go next. I can change the formatting if I want. When I say finish, you'll see it perfectly gets the information. Now I'm just going to show you a little bit more about the issue with numbers. So what you'll notice here is I've got the branch and bank number, and they're right next to each other, split by a space. What's important about this bank number is firstly it starts with a 0, and you'll notice it's very long. So if we did the normal text to column, I can either use delimited or fixed width. So I'm going to stay with delimited. I'm going to switch it off and say it's a space. So all of that looks fine. If I stop there, you'll see it gets that right. But notice these numbers look a bit strange. And if I format them as a long number, you'll notice that firstly it doesn't start with a 0. So this is what it should be. Can you see it's starting with a 0? And because it's such a long number, notice that this number ends with 119. This one ends with 110. That ends with 636. That ends with 630. Excel cannot handle extremely long numbers. eventually it gets to a point where it rounds it. So let's just undo. So when we have got this position, same thing, we go text to columns, we're going to delimit it, we're going to say it's a space, that's fine. But when we say next, we have to be very careful. We've got to tell it that this over here is text. So what we're telling Excel is ignore the fact that it looks like a number. Whatever's written here we want to see. When I say finish, you'll notice now that it pulls through exactly the numbers as shown, therefore the correct bank number. Flash fill is another tool that can be used to separate columns. To make our lives a bit easier, I've captured some of the stuff here. But if you haven't heard of flash fill, here's my column. I can go next to it. I type what I want to see based on that one. So I'm going to say I want to see JHB. I highlight it. I go to data. I click flash fill. And you'll see it immediately goes, identifies the patterns and does the same thing. So over here I've written that code there. I can highlight it. I can push Control E, which is the shortcut, and you'll see it does the same thing. Over here I can either type a 1, and then when I push Control E it gives me that. Alternatively, I could have put an apostrophe 001, and you'll see now it brings through it as if it was text. Flash fill can also be used here. So you'll see I've typed out what I expect to see, ceramic insulators. I highlight it, data, flash fill, and you'll see it pulls it through even though it's different lengths. Same with this, I've typed what I expect to see here. I click flash fill, and you'll see it gets it right. And so we can continue. I've typed the 220 from here. I'll highlight it, data, flash fill, and you'll see it does it correct. In this example, same thing, branch and bank account number. What's very important is we want the bank account number to include the 0 and must be all the numbers. So we mustn't let Excel think it's a number. So for the first one, I type the branch number, I highlight it, I can go Control E, you'll see it brings it through. But for this one, notice that I typed a number, but I included an apostrophe in front of it, telling Excel it must be text. I can highlight it, and when I say flash fill, you can see that it includes the 0 up front and includes all the numbers. If you need to create a template, then you need to use formulas to be able to split up a single column into multiple columns. So the formulas we're going to use are called left, right, and mid. So for example, here's my account numbers. I can see that the first 3 characters seem to be the city. So in Excel, there's a function called left. And left is fairly simple. It says, where's the text? I'm going to say it's over there. And how many characters do you want? So I can see it's 1, 2, 3. I can type a 3. When I say OK, you'll see it brings through the first 3 characters from the left hand side. Let's go to the right hand side now to look for the department. You'll see it's the last 3 characters. So this one's got a function in Excel called right. What it does, again, it asks for the text, and then it wants to know how many characters from the right hand side. So again, that's 3. I'm going to say OK, copy it down. Then you've got the client number, which is in the middle. So there's a function there that's useful called mid, standing for middle. And the only slight complexity here is you tell it where the text is. You need to tell it where it must start. So I can see I want to start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to say start at the 5th character. And how many characters must it bring through? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I say OK, I can copy and paste it down. And now I've built a template. So whenever I put numbers that look like this in this column, they will automatically be converted into 3 separate columns. Another function that can be useful is the len function. And all the len function does, it stands for length. And all it does is if I click on the text, it tells me how many characters are in that cell. And this can be useful in various instances, which we show in the various lessons. Left, right, and mid are useful when, for example, in the previous example, there's exactly the same number of characters in each item. But over here you can see we've got the situation where on the first line the name of the product is a bit longer than the second line. So we want to create formulas that will also extract this. The key here is to understand that we need to know how this column needs to be delimited, so we can see it's because of the hashes. And then we need to tell Excel where these hashes are. So a useful function in Excel to do that is either the find or the search function. As shown here, find is case sensitive, search is not case sensitive. So if you need to find a capital A, and that's different from a small a, you'll use find. If you want to find A, whether it's capital or not, you would use search. We're going to just use the find, but the mechanics are the same. So I'm going to go and find the find function. And you'll see it says find text. So now what it's asking for is what is it looking for? We can see it's a hash. So in inverted commas, I'm going to put a hash. Where must it go look for that hash? I'm going to say please go look over here. And you'll see immediately it tells me it's found one at character 14. And you've got something called start number, which we'll look at just now. For now, we'll leave it blank. So when I say OK, you'll see it's pulled out where the hash is, where the first hash is. So now what we can do, I can go back and use my left function. So let's go, we're going to say left. Where's the text? That's easy. How many characters do I want? Well, I know that when I'm in here, I want it to go just before the 14. When I'm in here, it must go just before the 20. So the number of characters then is going to be whatever's in that cell. Notice that if I leave it like that, what it's going to do is give me the product name, but it includes the hash. So depending on what you want, I might go and put a -1 here so that it excludes the hash. I can say OK, and I can copy it down. We now need to separate the other two areas, the middle section here and the right section. So what we need to do is figure out where the second hash is. So I'm going to come, again I'm going to use the find function. So again it's saying find text, I'm going to say please find a hash. Where must it find it? Over here. And notice that because it doesn't know what you've done previously, it says, oh, I found a hash at 14, which is the same one here. And that's why you've got this thing called start number, because what you're going to tell Excel is please don't start at number 1, start somewhere else. And in this case, I could type it in, but I want to link it. So I'm going to say start at whatever is in that cell there. Notice it's still saying 14 because it starts, immediately finds it and tells us where it is. So we have to go over here and say +1. So please start at whatever's in here +1, and then it tells you that the hash is now at character number 26. So I'm going to come and copy that down. So now we know where the first hash is and where the second hash is. So what we're going to use to extract the middle here is the mid function. So where's the text? We're going to say it's over here. Where must it start? Well, I know I want to pull it out. There's the hash. I must start just 1 to the hash. How do I know where that hash is? Well, I've pulled out a character here, so I'm going to say start over there. Because I don't want it to start on the hash, but 1 away from the hash, I'm going to say +1. How many characters do I want to pull out? Well, I know it must be between that hash and that hash. It's just those characters. But as you can see, these change size. I know where the first and the second hash is, so what I can do is I can say, take where the second hash is, subtract where the first hash is, and it'll give us and extract. Notice when I do this, I still seem to have the hash over here. So in this case, I might have to go and -1. When I say OK, I can copy that down, and you'll see it pulls out the column exactly. The third one is a very simple one because it's always on the right hand side. It always seems to be 3 characters. So we're going to say right, point here, 3 characters, and say OK. So what I can now create is a template where I can copy and paste data in that has different size columns, and the template itself will figure out where the delimiters are and extract them all in one go. In this example, we've got a slightly different problem. What we've got is path names, but we want to just extract the last part. So over here it would be corporate audit, over here global treasury, over here other, over here nothing. It would be my documents. The problem is, how do we know at what point do we want to extract? We can see it's the backslash, but do we have to, how many backslashes do we have to work out? Do we have to use find and find each of them and build some complex formula? And what we can do is basically trick Excel into telling us what is the last backslash. So the first thing we need to do is work out how many backslashes there are. Now what I'm going to do here, you can do in one formula, but I'm just going to do it in multiple columns so that you can see how it works. So the first thing I'm going to do is work out how many characters there are in that cell. There's a function called len, and what that does is it tells me how long that cell is. We're now going to create, I'm going to create that same column, but I'm going to get rid of all the backslashes, and the function we're going to use is called substitute. And you'll see there, I'm going to say, please look at that text there. The old text, the text I'm going to replace is this backslash. The new text is nothing. I indicated with 2 inverted commas next to each other. And this instance number at the moment is not important, but will be important just now. When I say OK, what you'll see is we've now got this exact thing just without the 2 backslashes. I'm going to again use my len function to figure out how many characters are in this cell now. And when I say OK, we can see that with the backslashes I've got 40, without them I've got 38. That tells me that there are 2 backslashes in this cell. And you can see we can copy this down and we can get all the various numbers. So let's just get the exact number of how many backslashes. I'm going to say it's that minus that. And we now know what the last backslash is. So this is useful, but now how do we get Excel to tell us where that last backslash is found? Remember, we're eventually going to use one of the left, right, and mid functions. So we need to know where the second backslash is, where the first one is, etc. The third one over here. Now unfortunately there's no easy way to do this, there's no formula that can do it. So what we're going to do then is we're going to tell Excel that wherever the second backslash is, we're going to replace it with something else, another character that's unique. So I'm going to go and I'm going to use the substitute function again. I'm going to say look at that text there. The old text is my backslash. The new text, I need to put something unique, something else, something that will never appear here. So I'm just going to use, let's say, this squiggly arrow, squiggly bracket. And this is the important part. If I left it like this, every one of the backslashes would be replaced with this. However, I'm going to say use instance number 2. So what I'm saying is don't do it to the first one, do it to the second one. Over here, do it to the first one. So when I say OK, and I copy it down, what you'll see, and we'll get to those just now, is that we've now got an absolute unique character in this area. We can now use our find function, and I can say please find the squiggle within this text over here. When I say OK, copy it down, notice it's now giving me the character number at which the last backslash is. Again, we'll sort these out just now. Now that we know that, I'm going to make use of a mid function. I'm going to say please look at that text over there. Please start at that character plus 1. And number of characters, you can get fancy about it, but I'm just going to put 100 there. When I say OK and copy it down, you'll notice that it's always pulling through the last item. Now let's just address this issue here. You'll notice the reason we've got error messages is because there is no backslash. So Excel's saying when you get to over here, there's 0 backslashes. And then you're telling it, please substitute, but then you're saying instance number 0, which is not possible. So we can make changes at various places, but what I'm going to do is over here, where it pulls out the character we're going to use for our mid function, I'm going to tell it if there's an error, so we'll make use of the if error function, then just default to character number 1. So you'll see that seems to work. And I mustn't forget, I must copy and paste this down. So what we've got now is a template where we can copy and paste in anything that looks like this, and the formula will calculate where the last backslash is and pull out only that information. Using a tool, we need to split this so that we can see the account numbers and the account names. So let's try something first. So to me it looks like there's dashes, data, text to columns. Let's try delimited. If I put a dash, so that looks fine, but notice suddenly I've got 3 columns. I was expecting 2 because there are dashes over here. So you'll be a little bit careful about that. I'm just going to go back. So let's try fixed width. And it looks like, if we go down, there's a very set order here. So that looks good. I'm going to say next. I want that. This here, the dashes, I don't really need. So I'm going to say do not import. That looks fine. I'm going to say finish. It tells me the data is already here. Do you want to replace it? So we're going to say no. Okay. So be aware when you use this tool, you need to pre-plan. So I'm just going to insert a column there. And pretty much do the same thing. So fixed width. That looks fine. Do not import this. So when I say finish, in this case we can say replace it to do with these lines. And you'll see it's now split nicely into 2 columns. In this example we want to use formula so we can create a template. So again, looking here, I can see these dashes. So this time I'm going to make use of the find function. I'm going to say please find a dash within this text. Now it's going to give us 10. The reason this works here is because these other dashes won't be found. It will always find the first one. So that looks okay. Just going to give it a heading to say that's my find. So that's where the character is. We're going to pull out the account number. So it looks like it's on the left of that. So the function to use is left. And when you say look at that text over there, how many characters, or whatever you see there, notice it keeps the dash in. So I'm going to say -1. It's okay. You can copy that down. The description now, I'm going to use the mid function. When I say look over here, where must it start? Well, now it must start at the dash, but just 1 character later. How many characters? I'm just going to put a big number for now, 100. copy it down so it splits it up. And the last one, I can just say equals to that cell. And now we've created a template where this can be copy and pasted in, and the template will automatically split the columns. Here we want to split this data using a tool. So generally a good place to always start is your text to columns tool, the data text to columns. What Excel will do is it'll try and guess which is the best one. So you'll see it saying fixed width when I go next. It looks pretty good. Remember, always just run down and make sure that it does look like it's going to do the job. So that does look like it's doing the job. You'll notice just at the end here, the word result is cut off. Not an important item. We should have deleted it first. So that looks like it's fine. I can go next, decide if there's anything I want to exclude or format as text. And when I say finish, we've got that done. In this example, we want to use formula now to break this up. Based on the previous example, we know that these are fixed width. There's a certain number of characters here, then here, etc. So what you often need to do in this case is simply go and figure out how many characters there are. So I'm going to click in here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there seems to be 5 characters there. Just over here, I'm going to type a 5. I'm going to just see what the next one, so this one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 25. Okay, so there seems to be 25 there. So I'm going to put a 25 here, and this one I'm just going to put 100. Now we can build formulas. So what we want to do is pull out the first 5 characters from the left hand side. Function to use is left. I'm going to say look over here. How many characters? Whatever you see up here. So that looks like it's going to do the right thing. Keep in mind I'm going to copy it down. So I'm just going to put $signs on here. When I say OK, it does that. And we can copy it down quickly. And just have a quick look and make sure that it seems to be doing the right thing. Next one now is in the middle here. So I'm going to use the mid function. I'm going to tell it to look at that text there. Where must it start? Well, it must start at that number there, but +1. And I'm just going to put $signs in here. And how many characters? Well, it needs to go for that number of characters in this case, because remember I counted 25 from here to here. So I'm going to click on there. If I look at that, that looks like it's correct. So okay. Let's copy it down. Oops, what did we forget there? Mustn't forget your $signs. Put that in there. And you'll see that looks good. Looks like it's doing all of that. And the last one, I'm going to use a mid again. I'm going to say look at that text there. Where must it start? Well, it needs to start at that number plus that number plus 1. How many characters? When I say just look at that number, does this look right? It seems to be starting at the right place. Let's just get some $signs in. So, okay. When I copy it down, if you have a quick look, it seems to be doing the correct thing. In this example, we've got some phone records off a PDF, and all we're interested in, you'll notice there's some fax to EM. We just want to know the fax calls. But you'll notice we've got words in here, there's lots of spaces, etc. So we could try various text to column type tools. So let's try delimited. So let's try a space. So you'll notice that looks okay until you hit over there where suddenly dates are not working out, not in the correct places. Let's maybe try fixed width. So again, we can try and do some of these. Let's see. then you'll see there's some problems there. So it doesn't look like the tool can handle it. So what we now need to do is come up with a formula that'll figure out, firstly, which of these are fax calls, and secondly, just to pull out the cost right at the end, the last number, which seems to always be after a space. So the first thing I'm going to do is just try and figure out which of these apply, which have got the fax2m in it. So we're going to look for this word fax2m. So I'm going to make use of a search function. The reason I'm going to rather use search than find is because I'm worried that occasionally this may come in uppercase or lowercase. So we're going to say find the text, and I'm going to type fax to em. Where must it look for it? In here. When we say OK, and I'll copy that down, you'll notice I get an error message when it's not there, but if it finds it, it gives me a number. So that's useful. Although that's useful, value and any error messages do give problems in Excel. So what we're going to do is we're going to add to this formula. And there's a function in Excel called isError. And all that will do is tell me if there's an error or not. So if I copy and paste down, you'll see wherever there's a true, it looks like it's some sort of a call. Wherever there's a false, there's a fax to em. So therefore, I can now build an if function around it. So I'm going to say if all of that equals true, then I'm going to say that's a call, otherwise it's a fax. When I copy and paste it down, we've got what's a call and what's a fax. The next thing we need to do now is work out where the last space is, because that seems to be where the amount is. So to do that, first we're going to make use of our len function to work out how long that cell is. And if I removed all the spaces, so to do that, we're going to use substitute. And I'm going to say, go look at that text there. The old text is inverted comma, space, inverted comma. New text is two inverted commas next to each other. It would give me that. And I'm going to now just put a len around it to work out how many characters it is without the spaces. The net result must be that that number of characters minus that number of characters must be the number of spaces. I can copy that down. Now we need to extract the space. So I'm going to build this formula up. So the first thing I'm going to do is replace the last space over here with some unique character. So I'm going to make use of substitute. I'm going to say, look at that text there. The old text is a space. The new text, I'm just going to put a straight up line. But what instance number of the space? I'm going to say, look over here. When I say OK, you'll see we've now got this, but now we've got a unique character at this point. So what I'm now going to do is build around it. I'm going to use my find function, and I'm going to say find this unique character in this text. And we don't have to worry about the start number because it's unique. You'll see it tells me it's character 47. So we now know the space is in character 47. I'm going to use a mid function. The text is over here. It must start at whatever number we find here. I'm going to plus 1. And how many? I'm going to just make it a big number, 100. You'll see it brings through the number, but for some reason, let's just copy it down. You'll notice that it's not adding up, so we have a problem that it's not been seen as text. So what we're going to now do is wrap a value function all the way around that. Copy and paste it down, and now you'll see it's adding up. In this example, we need to split this column. It's a branch bank number. Notice the bank number is very long and it starts with a 0. That's important to note. So I can just highlight all of that. text to columns. It's going to be delimited. That's fine. It looks like we can use this arrow straight up. That looks all fine. When we go next, so branch we're happy with. For bank number, I'm just going to tell it that these are text. I don't want it to get rid of the 0, and I don't want it to round the number off. All of these are fine. So when I say finish, you'll see that comes through. You'll see the bank number is the full number, including the 0. The salary has come through as a number, so you can add it up.